My parents made us rehearse poverty while sitting on millions. Then they reported our foster mother for spoiling us with sandwiches. When I asked my mom why, she told me, "Comfort makes kids soft, and soft kids are the first to go." I just stared at her. That was 5 months ago. This morning, she stood outside our new school, scribbling in her deprivation journal with trembling hands. When I was 9 and brought home a report card filled with A's, my dad made me sleep in the garage for a week. He said success made people weak, and we had to stay ready for when everything fell apart. You see, my parents, Tanya and Raymond, had grown up desperately poor. Even though Raymond made 6 figures as a software engineer, they lived in constant fear that poverty would come for us again, so they made us train for it every single day. Cold showers because hot water was a fragile luxury. Thrift store outfits even though Tanya had a closet full of designer suits for her law job. Every night was a new scenario in destitution. Mondays were hunger drills. We'd get breakfast, then nothing else, while Tanya and Raymond cooked elaborate meals and ate them in front of us, telling stories about their own childhood hunger, how empty bellies had made them resilient, how they chewed on grass just to feel something in their mouths. My little sister Naomi would cry, and Raymond would say crying wouldn't feed her when the real hardship hit. Tuesdays were cold exposure. They'd shut off the heat and make us do homework in winter coats, our hands numb inside gloves. Raymond would time us, how long we lasted before begging for warmth. Wednesdays we slept rough, rotating between the floor, the bathtub, and the backyard. Raymond had been homeless as a teen and would narrate every miserable night while we lay on concrete, shivering. Thursdays were utilities blackout, no electricity after sundown, homework by candlelight. Fridays were for shame. We wore the same dirty clothes all week and got dropped off in a dented practice car instead of Tanya's Mercedes. Weekends, full poverty immersion. Sometimes they locked us out with only the clothes on our backs. Other times they gave us 2 and said, "Feed yourselves." My older brother Malik got good at catching fish in the park pond. I learned which bakeries threw out edible pastries. Naomi was only 6, so we always shared with her. Our real home? 4 bedrooms in a gated community. Pool, 3-car garage. We just weren't allowed to enjoy it. Pantry full of food off limits. Cozy beds off limits. Closets bursting with clothes off limits. We wore 3 Goodwill outfits on rotation. Tanya kept a poverty journal. She rated our performance. Got caught sneaking food? Full day fast? Complained about the cold? You slept outside. They weren't cruel in tone. They explained everything as necessity, as training, even when they had us dig through dumpsters for cans to recycle. The worst was invitation practice. When we got invited to birthday parties, movies, school trips, we had to pretend we couldn't afford it. Act ashamed while Tanya transferred more money into their investments. We had to memorize their bank account balances to know exactly what we were pretending not to have. At 15, I got a job at Burger Haven and hid money, not for fun stuff, just socks or a hot lunch. Raymond found my stash. He made us live in the garage for a month as punishment for abundance rot. The practice car came into the driveway, and we slept on oil-stained concrete while our house sat empty. Tanya cooked on a camp stove, and we used a bucket for a toilet. We had to carry it through the backyard every morning in the dark. Malik tried sneaking into the house one night for a real bathroom. Raymond caught him, made him wear a sign to school. "I'm too soft for poverty." He had to wear it for a whole week. Things spiraled when Naomi got pneumonia from sleeping outside. At the hospital, she explained our cold practice. Child services arrived the next day. Raymond and Tanya acted calm, showed off the pristine house and full pantry, explained they were teaching us resilience. But the social worker, Ms. Chen, noticed our sunken cheeks, our untouched beds. She found the poverty journal, full of Tanya's ratings, descriptions of punishment. She interviewed us separately. We were too scared to lie. They removed us that day. Ms. Chen had kind eyes but tired shoulders. She helped us pack what little we were allowed to keep. Tanya stood in the doorway of the gleaming house, scribbling in her journal. Raymond stayed seated at the kitchen table, calmly eating his lunch while we were being removed. Malik grabbed his school backpack and the fishing pole he'd made from a stick and dental floss. Naomi clutched her threadbare teddy bear, the only toy she'd been allowed to keep for years. I shoved my Burger Haven uniform and our 3 changes of clothes into a trash bag. Ms. Chen drove us to an emergency placement nearly 40 minutes away. The foster mother, Lorraine, opened the door wearing a flour-dusted apron. The house smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. Naomi's eyes widened. Lorraine crouched to Naomi's level and asked, "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" Naomi nodded. Without even showing us our rooms, Lorraine led us straight to the kitchen. Sandwiches sat on the counter cut diagonally, crusts still on alongside glasses of cold milk and apple slices with a bowl of peanut butter. Malik and I froze. We waited for the catch. Lorraine noticed. She sat down and took a bite of apple like a quiet reassurance. We ate slowly at first, then faster. Our bodies remembered. Lorraine said nothing about how we hunched over our plates or how Malik quietly pocketed extra slices. She simply refilled the plate when she thought we weren't looking. The bedroom had 2 sets of bunk beds with actual mattresses, soft blankets, and lavender-scented sheets. The radiator purred. Naomi tested the mattress like it might vanish. That night, we slept in our clothes, on top of the blankets, ready to run if we had to. The next morning, Lorraine woke us gently. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. She'd laid out clean clothes that fit. Tags still on, but not like Tanya's display clothes. These were for wearing. School felt different when you weren't frozen or starving. My teachers noticed I was paying attention. Malik's grades picked up immediately. Naomi laughed at recess instead of sitting alone, conserving energy. We'd only been there 5 days when the first call came. Lorraine answered during dinner, her smile dimming as she listened. She stepped into the hallway. We caught snippets. Concerns about overindulgence, disrupting family values. When she returned, her eyes were worried, though she tried to smile. The next day, Ms. Chen returned. Someone had filed a complaint against Lorraine, said she was overfeeding us, spoiling us with luxury, undermining years of resilience training. Lorraine's hand shook as she showed Ms. Chen the stocked fridge, the tidy bedrooms, the warm beds. Ms. Chen asked us all the usual questions. Were we eating enough? Were we warm? Was Lorraine ever withholding food or comfort? We told the truth. Lorraine was kind. She fed us 3 meals a day, plus snacks. We each had our own bed. Ms. Chen's frown deepened with each answer. Before leaving, she pulled Lorraine aside. We heard phrases: reunification goals, parental concerns, middle ground. That night, Lorraine sat us down. She explained Tanya and Raymond had hired a lawyer, arguing their parenting style was a legitimate philosophy. They'd found other families online who did the same thing. They claimed removing us violated their rights. They wanted us placed with a family who would continue our resilience training. Malik asked if we had to go back. Lorraine couldn't promise we wouldn't. 2 days later, Tanya and Raymond showed up at school. Not to take us, just to observe. They stood outside the fence during recess. Tanya scribbled notes about us wasting energy playing. Raymond timed how long we stayed outdoors, shaking his head at our fragility. The principal called Lorraine, who called Ms. Chen, but since they stayed off school property, no one could stop them. They still had parental rights. I started to wonder what really went through their minds watching their kids eat lunch like it was some kind of sin. They turned every basic need into a data point. That afternoon, Lorraine taught us how to use the washer and dryer, showed us how to adjust the thermostat, how to lock the doors, where the emergency numbers were. She wasn't just teaching us chores. We understood what she was preparing us for. At the next meeting with Ms. Chen, Tanya and Raymond brought a lawyer, a thin man who spoke about cultural parenting and economic preparedness. He presented testimonials from other families who did similar training. He used phrases like anti-fragility, experiential education, character building through deprivation. Tanya and Raymond sat in their expensive clothes, Raymond checking stock updates on his phone while claiming we needed to be ready for collapse. Tanya showed photos of our empty bedrooms, evidence of their minimalist education. They reframed everything: garage sleeping, camping drills, food denial, intermittent fasting for children, cold exposure, hormetic therapy. The lawyer offered a compromise. We could stay in foster care temporarily, but only with a family who respected their beliefs. No spoiling, no undoing years of work. Ms. Chen looked bone-tired. She said she'd need to explore options. That night, Lorraine made our favorite dinner. Spaghetti with meatballs, garlic bread, salad, ice cream. She took a photo of us at the table. She said, "Just because something doesn't last, doesn't mean it wasn't good." Naomi asked, "Are we leaving?" Lorraine didn't have an answer. We'd been practicing poverty our whole lives. Tanya and Raymond thought they were preparing us for anything, but they never prepared us for kindness. They never taught us what to do when someone cared without demanding something back. In all their drills, cold, hunger, shame, there was never one for losing something that actually mattered. 3 days later, Ms. Chen returned. She carried a thick file and wore a tight smile. She spread papers across Lorraine's dining table while we waited in the living room, close enough to hear snippets. The first new placement she suggested was 2 hours away. The family believed in structured discipline. They had experience with children from unconventional backgrounds. Lorraine's jaw clenched as she read their household philosophy. Malik quietly pulled me aside and showed me his notebook. He'd been documenting everything Tanya and Raymond did: dates, punishments, food deprivation. He even drew diagrams of how we slept in the garage. He'd been preparing for this since we first arrived. Ms. Chen brought us in to explain the transition plan. The new family, the Prestons, would visit the next day. If all went well, we'd be moved by the weekend. She assured us they were kind people who understood our past. Lorraine stood by the window, arms folded, watching birds gather at the feeder. That night she helped us pack. She folded our clothes with care, slipping in notes between layers. She gave Malik a collapsible fishing rod, his first real one. For Naomi, a plush gray elephant to keep her old bear company. She handed me an envelope with 40 inside. "Hide it well," she whispered. The Prestons arrived promptly at 2 wow. Mr. Preston wore a full suit on a Saturday. Mrs. Preston smiled, but her eyes didn't match. They walked through Lorraine's house, commenting on the excessive toys in the living room and the indulgent snack cabinet. They asked about our routines, how many meals we ate, whether we'd kept up our resilience training. Naomi hid behind Lorraine. Mrs. Preston bent down and said she'd teach her life skills. Naomi pressed herself deeper into Lorraine's side. Mr. Preston took notes on our attachment behaviors and dependency signs. They outlined their house rules: cold showers twice a week for character, monthly fasting for spiritual grounding, and a rotating list of chores to build grit. They assured Ms. Chen that this was not like our parents' methods, just healthy boundaries. Ms. Chen nodded along, checking boxes on her clipboard. On paper, they were perfect, flawless references, no complaints. That night, Lorraine made our favorite dinner. Again. She let us stay up late watching movies. Naomi curled between us on the couch. None of us mentioned the next day. When it was finally time for bed, Lorraine hugged each of us tightly. She whispered something in Malik's ear about being careful. Morning came too fast. The Prestons' van pulled into the driveway at 8 sharp. They brought a cooler of appropriate snacks: carrot sticks and celery. No treats. Lorraine helped us carry our bags. Mrs. Preston explained the car rules. No talking for the first hour to encourage reflection. No snacks unless given permission. Bathroom breaks only at scheduled times. Naomi started crying. Mrs. Preston turned around and said, calm as ever, "Crying is a manipulation tactic in our home." She handed Naomi a worksheet titled Emotional Regulation. The crying stopped, replaced by the silence Tanya and Raymond had trained into us. Their house sat on 5 acres outside of town. It was smaller than Tanya and Raymond's, but it had the same stifled, hollow feel. The pantry had a lock. The thermostat was in a locked box. Our rooms were in the basement, sparse, but clean. At least we each had our own room. Mr. Preston gave us a tour of the property, the garden where we'd earn our meals, the chicken coop that would teach us responsibility, the woodpile that needed splitting to build character. He showed us the posted schedule: wake at 5:30, cold shower days in blue, fasting days in red, study time, chore time, reflection time, neatly boxed. Lunch was 1 sandwich each, no sides, water only. Mrs. Preston observed our table manners and noted our gratitude levels. When Malik asked what was for dinner, she said we had to earn it through afternoon chores. The first week blurred. We woke before dawn. Cold showers on blue-marked days. Work in the garden. Even Naomi pulling weeds with her tiny hands. Schoolwork at the kitchen table, meals earned only after tasks completed. Reflections before bed graded by Mr. Preston. They were smarter than Tanya and Raymond. They never crossed legal lines. We were fed barely. The cold showers were optional, but if you chose hot water, you lost other privileges. The labor wasn't dangerous, just relentless, and everything was documented. Character development, skill training, emotional fortification. Malik kept documenting too. Only now, he kept 2 notebooks. One, the official reflection journal, filled with phrases the Prestons wanted to hear. Grateful for structure. Appreciate discipline. Building strength. The other, the real one, hidden carefully, filled with photos, dates, chore logs, meal tallies. 3 weeks in, Tanya and Raymond filed for visitation. They'd completed a parenting course. They wanted supervised time with us. The Prestons supported it, claiming family connection was vital. Ms. Chen couldn't find legal ground to refuse. The first visit was in a community center. Tanya brought her journal and a box of appropriate items, secondhand books about resilience, clothes from thrift stores. Raymond handed out worksheets on survival skills. They tested our toughness, checked for signs of softening. Naomi barely spoke. Malik answered carefully, just enough hardship to please them. I watched the court-appointed supervisor, a bored woman scrolling her phone. Tanya and Raymond stayed technically within bounds. No cruelty, just constant reminders of what we were missing. What waited when we came home. The visits became weekly. Each time, Tanya and Raymond pushed further. They brought practice meals of plain rice and beans, insisting we eat them to stay prepared. They made us do push-ups and planks, calling it family fitness. They quizzed us on survival statistics and made us recite resilience principles. The supervisor saw devoted parents trying to stay involved. Meanwhile, the Prestons increased their own drills, longer chore rotations, smaller meal portions, more cold showers for mental toughness. They started exchanging notes with our parents, bonding over shared philosophy, hardship as love, control as care. Lorraine tried to stay in contact. She sent letters through Ms. Chen, encouraging cards with quiet messages. The Prestons screened them. They removed anything too emotional, too warm. Only the ones about working hard and staying strong got through. They interpreted those as support. Malik's real notebook grew heavier. He taught me how to use a digital camera he'd bought at a garage sale with quarters from saved lunch money. We photographed the locked pantry, the posted chore schedules, the solitary meals. Lorraine had taught us to survive in plain sight. Now she was helping us fight without making it obvious. Catherine, who we once knew as Lorraine, was building a case. She connected with other former foster children. She found researchers studying extreme parenting. She gathered testimonies from teachers who had noticed our change. Piece by piece, she assembled the story no official ever documented. The turning point came at a family therapy session. A new court-appointed therapist was assigned to evaluate our progress. Tanya and Raymond came prepared. Certificates of parenting courses, journals full of curated entries, plans for balanced reintegration. They spoke of learning moderation. The therapist asked questions that went off script. She watched our faces as we answered. Naomi, now 7, spoke gently about missing her parents, but being grateful for the lessons. Malik talked about seeing things differently now. I said I was hopeful for a more stable future. But the therapist caught something in the rehearsed cadence of our voices. She noticed how we looked to Tanya and Raymond for approval before speaking. She asked Naomi to describe her favorite family memory. Naomi went quiet. She couldn't name one that didn't involve hunger or being cold. The therapist made a note. Afterward, she recommended continuation of foster placement with therapeutic support. Tanya and Raymond left frustrated. The Prestons saw it as validation proof we weren't ready to come home. That night, Malik showed me his organized documentation, every note, every photo, every violation. But we were running out of time. The court review was approaching fast, and our parents were gaining ground. Lorraine Catherine knew we needed an edge. She worked through Ms. Rodriguez, my English teacher. Ms. Rodriguez had noticed the shift in my essays, darker themes, quiet desperation. She kept me after class. I didn't tell her everything, but I said I missed our first foster home, Lorraine's home. Ms. Rodriguez knew Lorraine from community volunteer work. She offered to send a message. I folded the note in a way Lorraine had taught us, a small origami shape we used as a silent code. It meant, "Help us." Lorraine understood. She started volunteering in the school library during lunch. She brought Ms. Rodriguez coffee. They talked quietly in corners. She couldn't approach us directly, but she was there, watching, waiting. Malik passed a USB hidden in a book. I printed photos at school and slipped them into homework. Lorraine built a new file, a truth the courts had yet to see. The Prestons never noticed. We'd learn from our parents how to perform, how to endure, how to play along while quietly preparing our escape. Tanya and Raymond grew bolder. They brought other families to the visits, families who practiced similar parenting. They shared techniques. They formed a support group right there in the community center. They called it intentional resilience parenting. They brought their kids, thin, pale, polite. We exchanged hunger stories like badges of honor. Malik won the conversation with a 3-day fast. They didn't mention it had been a Preston punishment for questioning the chore schedule. Ms. Chen continued monthly visits. The Prestons showed her our journals, our chore charts, our improving grades. We acted grateful, trained responses, but Lorraine kept working. She connected with experts. She collected evidence. She gave voice to the patterns no one wanted to call abuse. The breakthrough came during one of the parent visits. Tanya brought her updated poverty journal, pages of meticulous notes on our resilience metrics and progress levels. She left it on the table when she went to the bathroom. Malik created a distraction, asking Raymond a complicated question about compound interest. I grabbed the journal, flipped quickly, took photos page after page, escalation plans, return schedules. Deprivation methods far beyond what they showed in court. Now we had the proof, but no way to use it. The Prestons monitored computer time. Phone calls were supervised. Mail was checked. We needed someone outside who could help. School became our escape route again. Ms. Rodriguez arranged tutoring sessions at the public library. Academic enrichment, she told the Prestons. They approved. It looked productive, skill-building, practical. Our tutor was Marcus, a college student studying social work. Lorraine had arranged it. He was one of her former placements. He knew the signs. He knew how to help without raising alarms. During computer programming lessons, Malik learned about encrypted storage, cloud backups, metadata, and timestamps. During writing workshops, I practiced telling our story, truthfully, but in a way people would listen to. Naomi's reading time included books about children's rights, safe adults, what love was supposed to look like. The Prestons saw progress. Our parents saw practical survival skills. Ms. Chen saw engaged foster parenting. Everyone saw what they wanted to see. Meanwhile, we uploaded everything: photos, documents, logs, videos. Marcus helped us organize it all, legally admissible, professionally archived. Catherine's lawyer friend reviewed the material and quietly began building a case. Then the court review came. Sooner than expected, a new judge had taken over our case, one with less patience for non-traditional philosophies. She requested in-chambers interviews, including with us kids. Tanya and Raymond arrived dressed for court. They had testimonials from support group members. They had a reintegration timeline with charts and graphs. The Prestons submitted glowing reports. Ms. Chen presented her assessments: academic progress, cooperation, adaptation to structure. But Catherine had filed her own report as an interested party. It was thick, heavy, filled with evidence, expert statements. A different narrative entirely. The judge read it that morning. We waited outside the chambers while the adults went in. We could hear raised voices. Raymond's lawyer claiming persecution. The Prestons defensive. Ms. Chen rattled. Catherine's attorney calm, methodical, laying out the facts. When they called us in, the judge looked tired, but her voice was steady. She asked us to sit, and she talked to us like people. Not props, not files. She asked about our lives, our routines, our hopes. She had clearly read Catherine's report. Her questions were too specific to be coincidence. Naomi went first. 7 years old, holding both stuffed animals. She talked about hunger, not just skipping lunch, but real hunger. About sleeping outside, about the locked pantry. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. She just told the truth. Malik followed. He brought the full documentation, the version no one else had seen. He showed the escalation, discipline turning to deprivation, rules becoming punishments, tracking becoming obsession. He used Tanya and Raymond's own words against them. Then I spoke. I talked about the performance of gratitude, the way we learned to fake normal, how even our survival was choreographed, and how Catherine's home felt like something we hadn't even known was missing. The judge called a recess. Through the window, we saw our parents huddling with their lawyer. The Prestons sat stiffly whispering. Ms. Chen flipped through Catherine's file again and again. When court resumed, the judge's ruling was immediate. Our placement with the Prestons terminated, effective immediately. Our parents' reunification plan suspended pending full investigation. She called for emergency placement and requested a formal interview with Catherine. Raymond's lawyer objected, shouting about religious freedom and parental rights. The judge let him finish. Then looked him in the eye and said, "Children's safety supersedes ideology." Tanya's composure cracked. She stood up, gripping her journal, and began reading entries from her childhood, rambling. Raymond tried to calm her. She pushed past him, pleading with the judge. Pain makes them strong. She collapsed sobbing before court officers reached her. The courtroom was silent. Their supporters stared, the leaders of the movement, unraveling. We were led out a side door. Catherine was waiting. Within the hour, we were in her car. Naomi fell asleep between us, holding both her toys. Malik stared out the window, shoulders finally relaxed. I rode up front, watching Catherine drive steady hands on the wheel. We still had court dates ahead. Therapy, recovery. Tanya and Raymond wouldn't give up easily. The system might fail us again. But for now, we were going home. Not to rehearse survival, not to earn our keep, but to just be kids, fed, warm, and loved. Catherine made cocoa when we got home, real cocoa, with marshmallows. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one where we'd first learned that food could be given, not earned. She didn't ask us to talk. She just refilled our mugs and let us exist. No expectations. That night we slept in real beds, under warm blankets with full bellies. No drills, no locked pantry, no charts on the wall. Just 3 kids who had survived and who had finally been heard. The war wasn't over, but we'd won this battle. The next morning, I woke to find Malik already at the table, his notebook beside a bowl of cereal. He'd been up for hours, drawing diagrams, this time not of punishment routines, but of healing. Catherine moved around the kitchen softly. She didn't interrupt. She just watched. Naomi patted in, hair wild, both stuffed animals in hand. Catherine helped her into a chair and placed toast with real strawberry jam in front of her. Naomi took a small bite as if testing if it would be taken away. Then smiled. Ms. Chen called during breakfast. Catherine took the call in the hall, but we could hear her voice, quiet, steady, firm. When she returned, her jaw was set. She told us our parents had filed an emergency appeal, citing religious discrimination and parental alienation. The judge gave them 72 hours to make their case. Malik pushed his cereal aside. He showed us a new set of diagrams. He had mapped their escalation patterns, manipulation strategies, how their tactics shifted after each setback. Catherine studied them. Then she made a call to a friend who understood. That afternoon, a woman arrived, Dr. Sarah Winters, a psychologist who specialized in coercive control and family trauma. She didn't interrogate us. She just sat and let us talk when we were ready. Naomi showed her the elephant Catherine had given her. She explained how she'd kept it hidden at the Prestons because soft things were weakness. Dr. Winters took quiet notes, neutral face, careful hands. Malik showed her the full documentation, even the pages we hadn't seen, photos of bruises, logs of lost weight, temperature records from cold drills. She scanned everything with professional equipment. The next day, Tanya and Raymond returned in their old practice car. They parked at the end of the street. Didn't approach, just watched. Catherine called the police. They said, "Public street. They're not doing anything illegal." Malik set up a camera in the front window. Every hour, he logged their activity. Tanya sat writing in her journal. Raymond worked on his laptop. They stayed until dark. Returned at dawn. Catherine kept us inside. She taught Naomi to bake cookies. Real cookies, with chocolate chips. Malik used the computer for real research. He found studies on the long-term effects of childhood deprivation. I organized the documentation for the next hearing. On the second day, more cars arrived. Families from their support group. They held signs. Talked about parental rights and religious freedom. The police said again, they're not breaking any laws. Catherine started sneaking us out the back door to the library. Ms. Rodriguez met us there, along with Marcus and other allies who had quietly joined our cause. They helped us prepare court statements, factual, steady, clear. That night, the street was empty again, but flyers littered the cars. Defend alternative parenting. Catherine collected them all, filed them under evidence. Day 3 was quiet. Too quiet. Catherine was suspicious. She kept us home from school, made calls. Through her network, she learned that Tanya and Raymond had hired a new lawyer, specialist in custody cases involving alternative lifestyles. The hearing was set for 2 and 9. We wore our best clothes, the ones Catherine bought. She braided Naomi's hair, helped Malik organize his binder. I wore the outfit I'd bought for my Burger Haven job. Never expected I'd wear it to fight for my freedom. Outside the courthouse, a rally. Their supporters waving signs, wearing matching shirts. Media vans everywhere. Inside, a packed hallway. Tanya read from her journal to a group of sympathetic strangers. Raymond passed out pamphlets on adversity training. They had turned themselves into figureheads of a movement. Catherine guided us to a quiet room where Dr. Winters waited. She had expert reports, academic studies, and a calm intensity that made you feel safe. When the judge entered chambers, she looked bone-tired. The hearing began. Raymond's new lawyer launched into a passionate defense diversity of parenting, the danger of overreach, testimonials from high-functioning adults raised on challenge. Tanya and Raymond testified about their poverty, their intentions, how suffering breeds strength. They even proposed a new plan, comfort days and abundance exposure. Carefully curated, strategically softened. Then the judge turned to us, not just to listen, but to hear. Naomi spoke first, calm, direct, 7 years old and made of steel. She explained the difference between missing a snack and crying from hunger, between being chilly and shivering so long you stop feeling it, between being alone and being afraid of everyone. Malik presented the documentation. He walked the judge through the escalation from restriction to deprivation to systemic cruelty. He used their own words, their own charts. Then I spoke about pretending to be grateful, about learning how to pass every inspection while living with nothing, about the silence that performance required. Dr. Winters testified last. She laid out everything, the trauma, the damage, the dangerous ideology disguised as parenting. The hearing stretched into evening. Everyone argued, everyone postured, but we had facts. We had truth. We had each other. When the judge gave her ruling, her voice didn't shake. Our placement with Catherine made permanent. Tanya and Raymond limited to supervised visits with licensed therapists present. They would undergo mandatory counseling. Attempts to circumvent orders would result in criminal charges. Tanya tried to protest, but finally broke. She clutched her journal, sobbing about nights spent cold and alone as a child. Raymond knelt beside her, his calm shattered. Their supporters fell silent. We left through a side door. Catherine drove us home in the quiet. No protesters, no watchers, just dusk and peace. She made cocoa, again, and we sat at her kitchen table again. Malik finally closed his notebook. Naomi asked if our parents were sick. Catherine said, "Sometimes people are so hurt, they don't know how to love without hurting others." That night we slept. No drills, no fear, no pretending. Breakfast came with no price tag. School came without exhaustion. Showers were warm, clothes fit, and Catherine packed extra snacks, just in case. Our parents' movement fractured. Some blamed the system. Others walked away, uncertain where preparation ended and abuse began. Tanya and Raymond withdrew from public view. Their lawyer issued a statement about respecting the court. We began therapy, real therapy. Malik joined the coding club. I got promoted at work and saved for college. Naomi learned to read ahead of grade level. Some nights, we still flinch. Malik still writes everything down. Naomi still hides snacks under her pillow. Catherine never scolds. She just reminds us. The pantry's full, the heater works, and love doesn't have to hurt. We're not fixed. Maybe we never will be. But we're learning. That strength can come from kindness, not just survival. That being cared for isn't a trap. That home isn't earned. It's offered. And we took it. One warm meal, one quiet night, one ordinary day at a time. The poverty drills are over. We're learning how to live.